What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Marvel Rivals. Today we are going to be spectating the most delicious of Captain America gameplays, which is JapaneseCurry over here. So as you can see, he has a pretty good game here. It is going to be a little bit even as per multiple people's requests in the comments. So this should be a pretty even game, but still cranks a lot. Definitely blocks a ton of damage, more than I've seen most Captain Americas ever block as well. So let's see what this guy does and let's go from there. As usual, I will include the replay ID in the comment or the description below, so you can watch this replay if you want. If there's anything that you guys notice about this replay too that I miss in this more sort of live setting, let me know down there. This is a character that I think more and more people are getting a little bit more interested in nowadays as well, so definitely try this character out. He is a little bit better this season, and I do think a lot of people also struggle with this character on defense, and we will be playing Cap on defense here as well, so going to be pretty interesting. Holding high ground here off the rip, so is the Thor just around the corner, making sure that if a Doctor Strange portals, they are ready to do that. Holding up his shield to check that corner, and then stepping in front of his Thor as heat is taken low. This guy also has a great knowledge of just Captain America's range. You'll see him kind of stay in positions where he can get a lot of damage off. I think a lot of Captain Americas will struggle to either get in range and go too deep, or they are out of range and not doing anything. So this guy does a good job just consistently putting pressure on the enemy team, holding up his shield when he's taking a lot of damage, and he's able to actually soak a ton more damage than one would ordinarily expect. As you can still see, still getting some hit markers on the enemy team from a little bit of a distance. Stepping up and seeing the Thor and Thor and the Star-Lord go up to high ground over here. Make sure to contest them. The Psylocke joins them on high ground, but make sure that they cannot easily get behind his team. That is something that we saw the Thor from the other day do in that video as well. So that was kind of interesting that he does the same thing. Thor joins them on high ground, and they're able to push them off there. Sees the Cloak and Dagger drop low, so immediately gets on her using his diving strike. He's taken out, but the enemy is down a healer. His Invisible Woman ult will counter the Star-Lord ult, and they I don't know why the Cloak and Dagger ulted there, but they already had Invisible Woman ult. But maybe she just wanted to overlap to make sure that they stayed nice and safe. Maybe she was using it for damage purposes. I don't think it's ever good to just overlap like that, but they still kind of trade two ults for two ults. And as you can see, the Psylocke ults here, and he immediately just dashes in, trying to soak a little bit of that damage. If you haven't learned already, Psylocke will do more even split damage the more people are in her ult. So he wants to make sure that if he is also in there at full HP, he can soak a little bit more damage. So we love the noble sacrifice. It's very Captain America of him, you know? And getting right back on a point, playing a little bit less aggressive because they are down to Psylocke. Pops his ult and then dashes quickly to try and get a little bit of that shielding trail over on his Cloak and Dagger. She's able to stay a little bit safer there with the help of that shield. And then just running around on point, making sure to drop that trail in places that are good for his team. And they quickly polish off the rest of the enemy team there. His Thor did ult, so did the enemy Thor. And I didn't even see the Cloak and Dagger ult, but it, you know, appears that it didn't do a whole lot. So looking at just over a minute on the clock. Gets taken out here, trying to make a little bit too much space. But the enemy is still respawning, and he can sprint back to point, so should be okay to get back in here. I think that was a little bit of an int, though. He didn't really need to do all that. They were doing very well. But as you can see, he gets back to point very, very quickly with the help of that sprint. His Invisible Woman once again ruins this Star-Lord's life. No value off of that Star-Lord ult. They do trade Invisible Woman ults as well. Magic pops Dark Child. And they should have plenty of damage to get this enemy team off point. Immediately runs down the Cloak and Dagger there. Helps with the Doctor Strange. And they get a nice ace with just under 30 seconds left on the clock. Once again, playing a little bit more space, staggering the Invisible Woman here as his Psylocke steps forward to help him out. And Cap can't afford to make that space, I guess, too. So you do have your space or your shift and your jump, and then your diving strike and F to get back to safety. So space is definitely good. Portal comes out here, and I think he just has a little bit of trouble selecting a target here. Like, I don't know where he's going. This is the first, like, indecisive play I think I've seen him make, and I think he needed to just pick someone to go on, because he spends maybe 4 or 5 seconds running around there, not hitting anything. So that's the only thing that I've noticed so far that he should definitely do. But he backs out of the fight and still able to get a little bit of poke damage, even though he's taken very low. He gets around this corner, looking for the touch maybe. I think he goes in a little bit too early here. There was a healer behind him. They could have topped him off another 200 health. And he dies right before the cloak and dagger gets back to point here. She dies as well, and the enemy's just able to take that point. Let me know in the comments if you think if he waited a couple more seconds, they had a chance there. Because his ult was also coming up off cooldown. So if he had lived or just gotten a couple, maybe 100, 150 more heals, he had a little bit more time. Farm ult real quick, use ult, and then you can stall it out a little bit more in that way. They didn't have any other ults to really follow up with him, but I don't know. Cap ult can keep people alive for a pretty long time, so. But that's okay. His losses are gained because we get more game to look at. So they've now switched to Doctor Strange. Invisible Woman does not quite have ult, and she gets taken out. Those ults were a little bit desynced there, which is a little bit unfortunate. But getting right back into the thick of things, making sure that the enemy does not get a whole lot of distance on this point, even though they do lose their Invisible Woman there. Cloak and Dagger on the enemy team ults. And his team is pushed pretty far back to spawn, diving right in, holding up his shield to deflect a little bit of damage. And able to be very mobile, so he's not even taking that much damage compared to how many people are kind of looking at him at one time. Tries to stand in front of the Invisible Woman and block for her. Not able to get it there. Psylocke ult comes out, Invisible Woman out from the enemy team to counter. Darkchild on his team also comes out. And Eye of Agamotto as well, so they should be able to get a nice cleanup here. Star-Lord has already farmed ult, which is a little bit insane. Steps right into the Invisible Woman ult, should be able to stay safe from this one. That Star-Lord farmed ult very, very quickly there. That was kind of insane. And they're sitting in a pretty good spot with about 30 seconds left on the clock too, so. They are not sitting on any ults though, so they do have to watch out for Mag ult and Cloak ult. Coming in, sees the Psylocke on the side, almost able to get the KO, and he actually does. Helping that magic stay alive there was pretty huge. Cloak and Dagger on the enemy team ult, so they will have to back up a little bit. Getting in position where he can pop his own ult. Drops a little bit of the shielding field behind him, and then starts stepping forward to make sure that he's shielding right on point. Gets on this Invisible Woman. She's getting healed from some other source though. She does blow her ult as well as his Cloak and Dagger ult, so they should all be able to stay pretty safe here. His health is rubber banding a little bit, but it is the tank life. Star-Lord has once again farmed ult, but Psylocke also trades one back, helps trade one back. And Cap is just able to not soak the full Star-Lord ult there. They get a nice 5 for 2, but going into the third point here, that Star-Lord is definitely getting a little bit more value out of his ult too. I've also kind of tried to do this on Magneto where I, sync up my ult if they have a Cloak and Dagger. So, you always get that guaranteed one shot or almost guaranteed one shot. Would you guys do the same thing in this situation? Do you hold Invisible Woman ult specifically for Star-Lord in this situation? Or do you just blow it if your team is, in a pickle, taking way too much damage or something like that? Leave a comment if you think that that's something that you would do. Do you wait like the full... I mean, he's farming it up pretty quick, but he's at 63%. But do you hold Invisible Woman all the time until Star-Lord and just try and keep that synced up? Or do you use it on Psylocke ult here, knowing that that's coming? I think the healers were actually in a position where they might have been able to save that, because I don't think both of them were in that, so they might have been able to live the Psylocke ult, but I don't know. Maybe that's greedy. That might just be greedy. Pops his Cap ult and gets right back in on this Cloak and Dagger here, using his shield to keep his allies behind him alive. Forces her to commit ult. I don't know if he forced her to commit ult, but I think she wanted to use it anyway. But they do lose their Psylocke in the scuffle here, but he can stay on point, make sure it doesn't get too much ground, and get a little bit more damage on this Invisible Woman in the back line. Cart is currently not moving, and they will trigger overtime. The enemy team still has a good amount of distance to go. Invisible Woman ult comes out a little bit late for any value, so they effectively waste that. Psylocke ult is coming up soon. And with no defensive ults on the enemy team, it might be enough to take them out. Psylocke ult does a ton of damage here. They get one. Goes right back in on the back line, making sure to put a little bit of pressure on these healers. She's playing the shield very, very well. Iron Fist not able to get any kills on the... They do lose their Invisible Woman, though. Going to be a little bit rough here, but making sure to stay in the payload area, making sure it does not get any distance, holding up his shield as he drops very, very low. Good health pack knowledge, jumps over to that, and unfortunately his ult comes up just a second too late. Still stalling out with Invisible Woman ult. And the enemy's able to get the 3-0 off of the half. So we're definitely in for a grueler. I personally hate going first on, or defending first in these sorts of situations. I like setting the standard that people need to push towards. They do have a little bit of an uphill battle. It can really mess up a team, like knowing that you need to get 3 points and that sort of thing. So let's see what they do. This is my first time watching this replay through, so it's going to be a little bit fresh as well. I have seen the end scores, so it is going to be a dub, but how we get there is definitely still a mystery a little bit. All right, and opting to push over on this right-hand side. Immediately jumping up with a sword to take high ground, getting right back on this invisible one, putting a little bit of pressure on her. Not quite able to take her out. Gets on the Psylocke, puts a little bit of pressure on her as well, making sure that his DPS are not being pressured by her. His team has done a very good push without him. They still lose their Thor. And unfortunately, they will probably end up still losing this point. I feel like that was going really well, but they do have access to Cloak and Dagger ult. The enemy team has definitely farmed better ults, more ult charge than they have in this situation, but Iron Fist getting right back in on their backline. Good mag shield keeps the Star-Lord alive, healer alive, one of the two. And the Invisible Woman ult comes in just a second too late to save Iron Fist. But Star-Lord did not be able to get a whole lot of value out of his ult. Trying to really take out this Psylocke, sees the Cloak and Dagger low on height, jumps up there, quickly takes her out. Magneto following suit, and then the Doctor Strange portal comes out. I think he comes in through this portal a little bit too early, though. He doesn't have a whole lot of team behind him. And they're going to just be able to soak up all this Psylocke damage as Invisible Woman ult comes out from the enemy team. Popping Cap ult to make sure that his backline stays alive, running over there to make sure that he does leave a trail on them. Getting up towards the Star-Lord, towards this Cloak and Dagger, running her down with the Iron Fist. On offense, he does play a little bit more backline dive heavy. I feel like he didn't do a whole lot of that the first round. But now we're definitely going for this Cloak and Dagger pretty much every time. Unfortunately, not able to save his Invisible Woman from the Eye of Agamotto, but the Invisible Woman has respawned here, so we're just going to get right on these healers. Start smacking them. Gets another nice two-piece there, and they take the first point with first push. A little bit of a stagger on the enemy team, too. Cloak and Dagger quickly loses her life there. Star-Lord follows suit, and let's see if they can run down this Psylocke. She is invis. That was a nice juke as well. There we go. And that was a pretty good push. He definitely got a ton of pressure on the Cloak and Dagger and the Invisible Woman there, making their lives really, really annoying. Definitely wouldn't want to play against a good Cap player if I'm playing healer, especially because a lot of the healers in this game do lack that self-healing, that self-sustain. I probably would switch to Rocket, I'm not going to lie to you. Just because Rocket can get away from a lot of things very, very easily. His Cloak and Dagger ults to counter the Star-Lord. Magneto misses the one shot on her. Gets a nice They're able to stay alive through that major DPS cooldown. Jumps back to his team, gets a little bit more healing. Invisible Woman ults nothing effectively on the enemy team. She kind of just drops ult to maybe try and save the Magneto there, but it was late and there wasn't any ults expended on his team, so I feel like that's huge value for them here. Cloak and Dagger on the enemy team ults. He pops his ult to counter, making sure to give his whole team that shielding and the damage increase. Gets right back in on the back line, sees the Cloak and Dagger, and he is spinning his camera all over the place. I don't know how we're supposed to follow this, but we're in there. His Psylocke continues the pressure. A lot of people just step out of her ult, so she gets a nice two-piece on both the tanks. And they will definitely not be able to contest that one. So looking at just under 4 minutes on the clock, this Namor probably should have switched spawns, because he is going to get a little bit run down. So should the Cloak and Dagger. If you didn't know, you should be able to switch spawn rooms if you're in the spawn room and the enemy team captures a point. So it should be G. I think it's G for me, at least, unless you've rebounded or something like that. So he could have both of them could have just spawned with their team, but as a result, his team's able to get a lot of distance on this cart for pretty much no reason. I feel like the last cap that we spectated AOI, he definitely played a little bit more on the flanks, a little bit more dive heavy. This guy plays a little bit more reserved, definitely helps out his team a little bit more. Still getting on healers, but especially on defense, he's just playing where he needs to. I think that might have also been because he was playing with a Thor instead of a Doctor Strange. He has a little bit less freedom to just go in the back line and mess them up. But let me know in the comments. What do you think? Do you think he plays different just because it's a different playstyle, or if it's a different playstyle because of what they're playing? And again, I appreciate all the comments that you guys have all left on the videos. I appreciate you, giving me people to spectate. Appreciate all the constructive comments too. Anyone who's left any sort of like advice or gameplay tips or anything like that, I appreciate you guys, and I'm pretty sure people in the comments also appreciate you guys too. You know, if they're trying out a new character. That was an absolutely chaotic fight. Gets in this Invisible Woman right as she uses her ult. I was wondering why the Invisible Woman ult didn't fade there as she died, but it was because it was a Loki Invisible Woman ult. And just going to run down this Star-Lord, trying to make sure that he cannot get back into the fight and help his team. Unfortunately, Star-Lord definitely has a little bit more mobility than Captain America. So, Legendary comes out one more time, tries to get up in Star-Lord's face and block a little bit of it, but he does get 2, 3, and they're going to make it a nice, clean 6-for-0 ace. Still have a minute and a half on the clock. 2 meters left on the point. Should still be okay. They do have Moon Knight ult coming up as well. And with only a couple meters left, you just kind of drop that on point. No one else can touch, and should be all good. Running in with his shield and sprint at the same time there. Looking for a little bit of a flank on these healers here. Gets taken very low. Probably needs to play some line of sight here because he's taken some mad damage. Drops into the smoke over here. Looks for the Namor. Takes him low. Gets him to pop his left shift. His Cloak and Dagger ults offensively, so he's going to be able to stay in the smoke or drop back to the smoke. Knows the Namor does not have shift for a few seconds. They take out Strange, Loki, and Namor. Follow up with the Invisible Woman, and they return the 6-for-0 ace, tying the score 3-3. So it's a grueler of a game, but we have 2 more rounds to go. Let's stick with it. Back on defense with Captain America still. They do switch back to the Thor instead of the Doctor Strange. It is kind of funny that he will play Thor on defense and Doctor Strange on offense. I think Doctor Strange is good regardless, but I do see more Thors on offense than defense. Or in domination, where there's a little bit more flexibility with direction and that sort of thing. But here we go, trying to hold the right-hand high ground here, but there is far too many people up there, so he's going to drop down pretty quickly. Getting a little bit of pressure on the back line, a little bit of poke on them. Trying to jump back to high ground to hold this angle. Gets a nice diving strike in on the Invisible Woman. He does break the bridge there, and I think a couple people fall down as a result. If you can't get the enemy off high ground, break their high ground. Makes perfect sense to me. They get pushed off point quite a bit, and the enemy ends up just not playing on point at all. Definitely a little bit of an error. They play a little bit too much space, and they just don't even touch, and that was just a colossal throw. So, a little bit anticlimactic there, but all they need to do is get one tick, and they should be all good. Yeah, I'm not really sure what happened there. They were just playing, they were trying to get pressure, and I think that their momentum just kind of carried them past the point, and that's no good. Don't get baited. Don't get baited by the too deep dive, especially when you have only a minute on the clock. Getting right back in here, looking to take the same left-hand high ground or right-hand high ground. Tries to get right in on this Amor, get him to pop his left shift. Jumps back into the healing bubble, plays the cloak and dagger healing bubble very well here. Knows Namor does not have shift. They do lose their magic, but Namor is taken out, so a lot of that consistent damage is gone away. And getting right back in on these healers, smacking the crap out of this invisible woman. Takes out one, gets on the cloak and dagger. Able to take her out as well. His Thor is still very, very healthy. They still have their magic up. Star-Lord is going to be the only person with this Magneto, and they are just about on a tick, so anyone dies here, and they usher in the victory with a score of 4-3. So, pretty long game, longer commentary than we usually do, but I hope you guys enjoyed that Captain America gameplay. As usual, leave a like on the video if you liked it, leave a comment what you guys want to see next, and I will try and queue those up. Taking a look at the scoreboard here, he does get MVP as well. This guy's a very, very good Captain America player, so feel free to spectate this guy if you're looking for other gameplay. He does also play a good variety of characters as well, so if you want to see him play some healer, play some, he fills pretty well, so definitely keep that in mind. But he goes 37-8, 17 final hits, tons of damage, tons of block damage, pops off. Definitely try out Captain America. Hopefully this helped you guys, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.